So just settling into the position you found, wherever is going to suit you best today. Maybe giving yourself a little bit of time to shift side to side, just sensing your contact with the earth. And allowing yourself to rest down into that. So the weight of the body can release a little bit with the out breath. You can imagine perhaps that the muscles and the connective tissues can soften a little bit, just allowing the bones to support you. The body doesn't need to work here. And giving yourself a bit of time to just tune in to the sounds that surround you here. Sounds inside the room. Perhaps sounds further away. And perhaps, depending on where you are, there might be some space in between the sounds. And then inviting that same gentle attention inwards a little bit more towards your physical experience. So how is it to rest this morning? Sometimes it might feel really easy, like a relief to pause. Sometimes it might feel trickier. There might be some agitation or an urge to move. And allowing yourself to really welcome whatever the experience is. There's no right or wrong way of being here. And bringing some awareness towards the breath now, without needing to breathe in any particular way, just allowing the breath to come and to go. Knowing that you're breathing in as you breathe in, and knowing that you're breathing out as you breathe out. And perhaps getting a sense from the inside of the movement of your breath. Where do you feel the inhale? And where do you feel the exhale? And we're going to begin to come into some gentle movement in a few moments. But just offering yourself the invitation to keep returning to the breath. Keep coming back to a sense of the breath from the inside, so that you can begin to notice how the breath might shift and change in response to what's happening in your body as you move, maybe what's happening in the mind. Seeing if all the way through the practice you can just really extend a welcome to the breath, however it is. And then let's come into some movement, and let's begin with a little bit of gentle self-touch and self-massage. So I think that if you are resting on your back, you can do most of these on your back. If you're seated, you can do this seated. So it's kind of up to you where you want to begin with this. But just bringing your hands together to start and giving them a little rub so we can build a little bit of warmth in the hands. And then bringing the hands to rest gently on the sockets of the eyes. So the heels of the hands rest into those hollows. And allow the face to absorb some of that warmth. All of the muscles around the eyes to soften a little bit. Right. And then give yourself a little bit of time to explore just stroking the face gently. So you might begin up at the forehead and gently stroke down. The muscles of the eyebrows, you can give a gentle pinch. Work your way from the center out. And when we're working with this self-touch, it's really a chance for you to explore what feels good in your body. So I'm going to make some suggestions that you can feel free to take or leave as you need. The area underneath the eyes can be quite nice to just stroke again from the center out towards the edges. And then a gentle kind of pinching with the knuckle and the thumb around the cheekbones. And maybe down into the jaw a little bit. So working around the lower jaw. Maybe a little rub to the temples. And then just allowing one hand to rest on the forehead and bringing the other hand to cradle around the base of the skull, that part that we were thinking about. And give yourself a moment or two just to rest with that, so to feel the contact of the hands. And you might imagine, if you find this visualization useful, that the touch of your hands can invite the inside to soften a little bit. So the tiny muscles around the base of the neck, the skull, can soften their grip. And then taking the hand that is at the base of the skull and resting it for a moment over the heart. And again, just allowing your breath to be as it is. Noticing if there's any impact on your breath of this kind of gentle contact with the hands. And then if it's okay for you to do today, you could take the hand that's resting on the forehead at the moment and bring it down towards the belly. So you've got one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. And just absorbing the warmth and the contact. Okay. And then we'll come into some more movement. And again, you can do these movements from the ground if you're comfortable resting on your back at the moment. But if you prefer to stay seated, I'll show you some options for a seated position as well. If you're going to be coming to your back, then it's useful to have something to support your head, especially if your neck's feeling sensitive at the moment. Having a little bit of extra height might be useful. So I'll show these movements lying down and then I'll come up and show some seated options. So you've got that available. If you're resting on your back, just decide whether you'd like your knees bent or your legs straight, maybe a cushion under the knees if the legs are straight. And allowing the weight of the head to really drop into the earth, the pelvis to drop into the earth. Finding somewhere comfortable to rest your hands, whether you're seated or lying down. And consciously softening the muscles of the face. So imagine that the eyes could drop back a little bit. And keeping the head nice and heavy, we're just going to roll gently to one side until you meet restriction. And then coming back towards center and over towards the other side. There's no rush, the shoulders can stay nice and heavy. And if you're seated here, just allowing that really gentle turn from side to side, seeing how soft the shoulders can stay through that movement. And just experimenting to find the speed of movement that feels useful in your body today. The speed of movement that connects you to your breath and connects you to your body. Consciously softening the jaw as you go. And then coming back to find center when you're ready. And we'll take the hands down towards the hips, whether you're seated or lying down. And just beginning to explore gently sweeping the arms up in the direction of the head. So if you're on the ground, they might stay in contact with the ground or they might hover a little bit. And then sweeping back down again. So choosing a size of movement that suits your body, that feels comfortable for the shoulders, keeping the arms connected to the center of your body. Great. And then the next time that you breathe out, let's settle with the hands at about shoulder height, with the palms facing up towards the sky or facing forwards if you're seated. And then bringing the arms up and just draping them over each other so that arms will cross at the elbows. Great. If you're seated, you can let the elbows be a little bit heavy so they can drop down onto the chest. And wherever you are, just inviting some breath and some attention into the space in between the shoulder blades. And inviting a little bit of gentle rotation in here, if that feels good. So gently rolling left, gently rolling right, just easing into the upper spine. Right. Coming back to center in your own time so that we can change the cross of the arms. So just noticing which arm is on top, changing over. And then again, dropping into a little bit of rotation if that felt good on the other side. And coming back towards center, releasing through the arms. And let's meet on the ground if it's okay for you to be resting on the ground today. If you need to stay seated, then do, and I'll show you another option. But if it's comfortable for you to be on the ground, we're just going to come into some twists, which are nice to do from the lying down position. So taking the arms as wide as feels comfortable for your chest and your shoulders. You want to find a place where the arms still feel kind of connected and rooted at the shoulder joints, so not pulled. Taking the feet a little bit wider perhaps, and knees bent. And then just tick-tocking the knees from side to side. That movement can be quite small and contained, or it might be bigger if that feels good in your body today. If it's comfortable for the neck, you might turn the head in the opposite direction to the knees. So we've got some rotation coming all the way through to the upper spine. Great, and then let's come back towards center. And let's roll all the way over onto our side. So let's roll to the left-hand side to begin with. And you might want something to support your head here. So you can bend your elbow, move a little further back so you can see me more clearly. You bend your elbow and support yourself on your hand, or you might prefer to use a cushion or a blanket or a combination of the two. But make sure your neck feels supported enough so it's not straining at all. And we're just going to do a few really gentle rotations again here for the upper spine, but also having some contact with that point at the base of the skull that we're thinking about. So if you take your right hand and bring it back and just give yourself a little massage through the back of the neck and the base of the skull, have a little dig around into the little notches either side of the spine. And then find somewhere that your arm can rest comfortably. So your upper arm might rest against the head, and we kind of don't want the arm to move away from the face too much in this movement. So we're just gonna gently tip forwards so the elbow moves a little closer to the ground, and then gently roll back so you can feel the round surface of the skull, and then tipping forwards again. And if you allow the arm to stay really passive, so the arm isn't leading you in and out of the twist, it's the rolling gently across the skull that is kind of opening and closing you here. Great. And then coming back to find a more neutral place. So the hips are stacked on top of each other, the shoulders are stacked on top of each other. And we're going to take a moment to just begin to open through the side a little bit more. So take your top hand, the right hand, just begin to creep it up and over the head. So it might rest, the upper arm might rest on the face again. The hand might rest on the ground, but if the hand doesn't rest on the ground, bring it forwards until you can find a place where it can rest. So we're looking for a nice gentle sense of space across the top waist, not needing to force anything. And if that's a comfortable place to be, you might want to just rest here and breathe and invite the breath to open a little bit of space in between the side ribs from the inside as you breathe. Or you could explore this a little bit more actively by reaching the top leg till it begins to straighten, just lengthening through that leg. and reaching through the top arm. So as you do that, you might become more aware of sensation across the front of the hip, so kind of deep center of the body, just gently opening. Last couple of breaths here. And then bringing the knees back together if they've been apart. And we're going to roll over to the other side to do those same openings. So taking your time, rolling onto the right hand side. Give yourself some time to settle there. It might feel a little bit different. You might want some different support under your head. And then bringing the left hand now to rest at the base of the skull, and give yourself that time to just explore with the fingers and the thumb. See if you can invite the muscles to release a little bit with some contact. And then resting the upper arm, so the elbow is heavy. And then coming into some gentle rotation, so tipping forward so the elbow drops, and then rolling back the round surface of the skull. So the elbow lifts, but it can stay passive. Rolling forwards and then lifting. And all of these movements, allowing them to be a size that feels appropriate in your body today. So there's no need to push into any strong sensations, just gently opening. When you feel kind of complete with those rotations, you can come back to pause and then exploring opening through the side by reaching the top arm, maybe resting on the head over the ear, maybe coming further forwards if that's useful. And deciding if you'd like to rest here and to breathe, or perhaps lengthening through the top leg and the top arm to feel that slightly more active opening through the center. But whichever option you've chosen, taking some attention into the top waist, and the sides of the ribs, and as you breathe, imagining them opening. And when that feels complete on this side, drawing the knees back in if they've legs been extended. And then let's make our way in your own time back towards a seated position. And then all the way through, if you're comfortable in a tabletop position today on hands and knees, then finding that. But if you would prefer to stay seated or you need to stay seated, then just finding a comfortable seat. If you're coming towards a tabletop, have a play around to find where your hands and your knees need to be to feel supported. And then from whichever position you're in, whether you're seated or you're in a tabletop, take a breath in and find your spine. And as you breathe out, gently begin to curl through the spine, drop the weight of the head so that you can feel a gentle curve through the back. The head can be heavy, the jaw can release. And in your own time, slowly rippling through the spine, allowing the heart to move forwards, the face to float up, and the shoulders to move back. And taking your time to snake through those two shapes, the gentle curve, the gentle arch. Finding a rhythm that suits you this morning. Knowing that if at any stage you need to take a little break for the wrists, you could always drop onto your forearms or return to a seated position. Great. And giving yourself some time now to let this movement begin to shift and change so that it can become a little bit more organic. You might explore some side to side movements or some circling for the hips and the pelvis. Just allowing the spine to move however it needs and allowing the shoulders, the neck and the head to kind of follow the suggestion of the spine. And then we'll make our way from here towards child's pose. So bringing the big toes together, take your knees a little bit wider, let your hips move back in the direction of the heels, knees as wide as they need to be to give you room to breathe and to feel relatively comfortable here. And then head coming down, maybe resting on the ground or stacked hands or stacked fists. If this isn't a comfortable place for you to be today, then you can find a similar pose from a seated position. Just allowing the knees to bend and releasing the weight of the head forward. So you get that same nice gentle curve through the lower back, and breath moving into the back of the body. And then tuning in and noticing how things are feeling inside. If resting is feeling like a priority for you today, then you might want to stay here in child's pose or in another pose that helps you to settle and to feel some of that rest. But if you get a sense that continuing to move a little bit more fluidly with the breath will help you today, then you could begin to come into a bit of a flow, extending the arms forwards and breathing in to return to your tabletop position and breathing out to drift back towards child's pose. So the breath lifts and the breath drifts you back. Okay. You might stay with that as it is, or if a little bit more activation around the shoulders, the legs, the center of the body would feel good, you could thread downward facing dog into the flow. So using an out breath to find downward facing dog, and then an in breath for your knees, and out breath back to child's pose. And if you're moving now, knowing that you can pause and spend time in any pose where you'd like to be for a little bit longer. You can really explore each shape in your own time. And wherever you are, connecting again with your breath. How is it now? So we're going to make our way in a few moments towards a standing position. If a forward bend is somewhere that feels comfortable for you this morning, then you might want to spend a little bit of time in a forward bend. But if you know that that's not going to serve you today, then you can find your way to stand however is best for you. If you are going to spend some time in a forward bend, maybe supporting the forearms on the thighs and keeping the spine long if that feels better for your lower back, or releasing all the way down if that feels comfortable. Knowing that you can spend a bit of time here and a little bit of movement, shifts and wiggles to ease into it, so you don't need to feel too stuck.
Allow the weight of the head to really release. So all of those little muscles around the base of the skull and the neck can let go. And then we're going to make our way up to standing. Take your time with this. You might want to support yourself on your thighs, especially if your blood pressure is a little low at the moment. Really take your time to roll your way up. Having some rolls through the shoulders as you arrive, really taking your time, no rush. Great. Have a little shake out through the hands, shake out through the legs, a little jiggle. Great. So then let's find our way into some standing poses. Let's begin with the feet a comfortable distance apart, so wherever they need to be for you to feel supported. You might be useful to take a look down, have a spread through the toes. Great. Bringing the hands towards center, so you've got a sense of the midline of the body. And then feel down into your feet and see if you can notice which foot's holding the most weight right now. And what that might mean higher up in the body. And then give yourself a chance to gently shift from side to side, just noticing how the body responds to that shift in weight. And this gentle shifting and paying attention to the weight in the feet can be a really useful way to quite kind of directly come back into your body. If you notice through the day that you're a little bit in your head or a little bit elsewhere, and it would be useful to kind of come back in into ground. This can be a really useful thing to do, especially if you're doing any cueing at the moment. It's a good trick to have in your toolbox. So when you find your way towards something a little bit more balanced, see if you can settle there. And then take your attention all the way up through the legs, the pelvis, the spine, towards the crown of the head. Let yourself be tall. Let the shoulders drop down, let the face be soft, and let the feet root into the earth. Okay. So let's come from here towards a chair pose. If it's useful to have some extra support, you might want to turn towards it so that you can hold on to the back of a chair or a wall or a mantelpiece, whatever you've got. And then taking a look down at your knees, just making sure the knees are bending in the same direction as the toes when they bend. Bring some attention towards the creases at the front of the hips. And we're going to invite the hips to move back. So the knees will begin to bend, but kind of as a side effect of the hips deepening rather than the knees dropping down. So the hips move back as if we were moving back towards a chair. And then decide whether you might like to have hands at heart, hands at some support, or reaching forwards today. See what feels best for the center of your body, the lower back, the lower belly. We're going to pause for a few rounds of breath, but you can always move out whenever you need. And then if you would like to, you could build in some movement with the breath. So breathing out to sweep the hands back and down. Breathing in to sweep the arms forwards and up. Finding a root for your arms that feels good for your shoulders today. Okay. Let's take one more breath. And then hands coming together, coming to stand, legs nice and strong. Okay. And from here, let's find our warrior stance. So we'll step back with the left leg to begin with. About a leg's distance, but you can play with that to find a distance that helps you feel strong. So front foot pointing forwards, back foot at a little bit of an angle, so you can still root into the ground with your heel.
And then beginning to bend into the front knee, just bending and straightening a few times to sense the strength in that leg. Sense your connection with the earth. Great. Pausing when you're ready. Knee more or less over the ankle, but see where you feel strongest. And then hands towards your heart, getting a little taller and turning gently towards the left. A little rotation through the upper spine. We're going to begin to open through the arms. So the right hand reaching forwards, the left hand reaching more or less back. And then let's move a little bit with the breath. So as you breathe in, we could lengthen the legs and maybe lift the arms. As you breathe out, bending the front knee again, finding your way back to warrior two. Inhaling to lengthen and lift. And exhaling to find your way back down. Great. Let's take one more breath. Big breath in warrior two. And then hands floating down. And let's turn towards the left. So the toes facing out a little bit. We're going to find our way towards temple pose. So the feet might want to come slightly closer together than they were in your warrior position. Have an experiment to see what feels kind of strong in your legs. The knees still pointing in the same direction as the toes, so the thighs are turned out a little bit. And then bringing the hips back, weight in the heels, just sensing the strength in your legs here. You might feel that with your hands. Great. And then again, moving with the breath. See how that feels. Inhaling, lengthening the legs and maybe lifting the arms. And exhaling, soft elbows coming back down. Inhaling wide. And exhaling. And last breath here. Great. And then let's pause for a moment in temple pose, knowing that you can always come a little higher if you need to, whenever you need to. And just bring some attention up towards the upper spine, the base of the neck, that area that we were thinking about a little bit at the start of class. Notice how it feels. You might even use your hands to notice how the muscles feel under your hands. And just have an experiment. What needs to happen in your body for that part of your body to have as much ease as possible? So you might notice that shifting your weight a little bit forwards or back, maybe bringing some attention to what's happening in your lower back. Have a play around to find some softness and ease. And then when you're ready, you can come out if you're not out already. Have a little shake through the legs. So seeing if we can make a little bit of a practice of kind of keeping the attention spread throughout the body. So even as we're doing something where no standing poses, we've got a lot of attention down here, kind of where things are working and things are strong. Just experimenting with taking your attention somewhere else so that you can, just keep the awareness of what's happening there. You might find that things need to shift a little bit to keep easy there. So let's turn to our warrior pose on the other side. So now the left foot is going to be our front foot, left foot pointing forwards, right foot back at a little bit of an angle. And then beginning to bend into your front knee, bending and straightening just a few times to sense that strength and connection through that leg. And finding somewhere to settle where you feel strong in the front leg, connected in the back leg. Hands towards your heart so you can feel nice and tall. And then let's begin to turn and open towards the right, extending through the arms and taking any movement that you need to take to feel settled and to find as much ease as is available here. Right. And then if you'd like to move with the breath, you could lengthen the front legs and maybe lift the arms as you breathe in. As you breathe out, bending the front knee, arms nice and wide. Let's take one more round of breath here. Nice big breath in warrior two. And then releasing, finding your way back to center. Have a little roll through the shoulders, a jiggle through the hips, anything that needs to move could move. Lovely. And then let's make our way down towards a seated position. Last few movements before we rest. If you are comfortable in downward facing dog, you might want to take a moment there on your way down, or you could come down through a squat, or you could find any route to the ground that suits you. And then as you find your way down, give yourself some time to decide which seated position is going to feel most stable for you today. You might have your legs crossed, you might kneel, might extend the legs. For most of us, it's useful to have a little bit of support underneath the hips. That can help to lengthen through the lower back. Great. And then just take a few little rolls through the shoulders, noticing how they are now. And then we'll take the right hand out. We're going to turn the palm up towards the sky, so you feel a little bit of rotation through the upper arm. And then staying nice and tall, just bring your other hand towards your lower ribs. So we're going to begin to move here in a way that, seeing if we can keep this area nice and settled, so we're not hinging at the mid-back too much. So we're going to reach out into our fingertips and then begin to lift the hand. And you might not move very far before your ribs want to start helping out. So when you get to that place, just pause. See if you might be able to soften through the palm of the hand a little bit. See if you might soften through the back of the neck, the skull, the jaw. Notice the sensations that you can feel in the shoulder, perhaps spreading out further through the body, the neck, the arm. Great. And then we're going to take that into a little bit of a more active movement. So we're going to just take a look at your hand and make sure that the palm is turning face in towards you. Great. And then bend the elbow. We'll take hold of the other elbow and let yourself get a little bit taller. Great. And then let's just invite ourselves into some circles from here. So we're guiding that elbow in circles, whichever direction kind of comes intuitively. Maybe taking some time in the opposite direction. Okay, coming back towards center, so still staying with the raised elbow, but again, just check in with the ribs if they've lifted up to try and help, see if you can settle them back down. And then turning the head gently towards the left, so the opposite arm to the one that you've got raised. Great. And then drop the chin down towards the collarbone and give yourself a little bit of time to just play around with the position of the head, be rolling and rocking to see if you can find a nice stretch for the right side of the neck here. Breath or two there. And then roll your chin back to center so the head is heavy, and slowly breathe the face back up. So we don't want to jerk the head around too much. And then the last thing on this side, we're going to take the same arm and just begin to reach across the body. It might be at a bit of a diagonal. Great. And then with the other hand, drawing the upper arm a little bit closer towards you, and then press out into that hand at the same time. So there's a little bit of kind of a maybe traction feeling through the back of the shoulder blade. And you can explore how it feels to turn your head gently towards the right. If that feels like it's too strong, the sensations, you come back to neutral. And taking just a breath or two here. And then coming back to center, let your hands rest down and give yourself a moment sitting relatively still, just to notice how things feel side to side, through your shoulders, through the sides of your neck. And then we'll work through those movements on the other side, so hopefully evening things out a little bit. So taking the left hand now, turning the palm up towards the sky. Great. Reach out into the fingers, and then settling the ribs with your other hand, just beginning to lift up to the point where the ribs want to help, and then let yourself pause there. Settle the ribs back down, reach into the hand. And it might be a really different place on this side, so let yourself be gently interested in that. And notice if you might be able to reach and at the same time keep the palm relatively relaxed. Great. And then we'll bend the elbow, dropping back, taking hold of the elbow with the opposite hand. And then coming into some of those gentle circles, as big or as small as feels good in your body right now. Maybe taking those circles in the opposite direction. And then pausing back at center. Keeping your hands as they are and turning the head gently towards the right, and dropping the chin down towards the collarbone so that you can explore and find somewhere that feels like a satisfying stretch for this left side of the neck. And then rolling the chin back to center, slowly breathing the face back up. And we'll reach that arm across a diagonal. So you're reaching away, but at the same time drawing the shoulder back. So there's a little bit of traction there. Then pressing into the hand with your arm, pressing the arm into your hand. And if you bring the opposite hand probably up towards the upper arm, you'll feel a little bit more around the shoulder. Yeah. Maybe turning the head if that felt good for the neck on the other side. And then coming back towards center. Have a little roll through the shoulders. Have a shake out through the hands. Right. And then let's just return one more time to those holds that we were looking at the beginning. So taking one hand towards the forehead and one hand towards the back of the skull, just cradling that area at the back of the skull, the base of the neck. Let yourself feel that warmth. And perhaps imagining the connection between the hands. And then taking the bottom hand down towards the heart, taking a couple of breaths there. And then when you're ready, taking the top hand down towards the belly, taking a couple of breaths there. So we're going to make our way towards final relaxation now. Does anybody need to end absolutely bang on 11? Give me a wave if they do. No, great. I've yeah, run a little bit over. So if you find somewhere comfortable to rest, that might be on your back today, but it might be seated or resting on your side, wherever you're going to feel most able to begin to settle. Make sure you feel warm enough. Make sure you've got anything you need to give yourself kind of optimum conditions for rest. Allow yourself to shift a little so that you can feel your contact with the earth, and then let yourself drop into something a little bit stiller. Allow the weight of the body to give itself into the support of the earth. And we're going to just gently work our way around the body, inviting each part of the body to rest a little bit more deeply into the support of the ground. And as we go, you might find that there are some places that are ready to release any tension that they're holding. Some places might need to hold on a little bit longer. So see if you can be really patient and generous with both of those kinds of experience. Bringing some awareness now towards the face. The bones of the skull, the jaw, the weight of the eyes. And inviting the weight of the head and the face to let go into the support of the earth. And bringing awareness now towards the neck, the sides of the neck, back of the neck. All of the tiny muscles around the base of the skull that work so hard. Invite the neck to let go into the support of the earth. And bringing awareness towards the shoulders and the upper back. Inviting the shoulders to let go into the support of the earth. And bringing awareness down through the spine, through the sides of the waist, into the lower back and the pelvis. And invite the whole of the back of the body to let go into the support of the earth. And bringing awareness now towards the hips, the pelvis, and down into the length of both legs. The thigh bones, the knees, the lower legs, and the feet. And inviting the whole length of both legs to let go into the support of the earth. Attention now towards the length of both arms, the shoulders, elbows, forearms, the wrists, the palms of the hands and the fingers. Inviting the whole length of both arms to let go into the earth. And scanning your awareness down through the chest, the ribs, the belly. Sense of the organs resting deep inside. And inviting the whole of the front side of the body to let go into the support of the earth. And allow yourself to be aware of all of these parts of the body connected as one whole. Resting and breathing. Allowing yourself this time now to rest, knowing that there is nothing else you need to do. So allowing yourself to be aware again of the breath. And just noticing for yourself whether continuing to rest right now might be beneficial. If you've got the time and space to do that, you could continue to rest as long as you need. Allow my voice to fade into the background a little bit and stay as you are. If you know that you need to come towards the end of your practice now, then in your own time, you could make your way towards a seated position if you're not there already. Take your time to get there. There's no rush. Make sure you are as supported as you need to be to find comfort. And if it's comfortable to do so, you could bring your hands into contact with your body, anywhere that might need a little bit of extra support or contact. Maybe the heart, maybe the belly, maybe the face, maybe somewhere else. Just using that simple gesture of being here with yourself, for yourself. Taking a moment to notice how things are feeling inside now. You might be aware of things on a physical level, sensations, your breath. You might be aware of thoughts or feelings that are around. Seeing if you can extend that warm and generous welcome to whatever it is. And then finding a gesture with your hands that brings a sense of completion to your practice today. And thank yourself for taking the time to practice. And sending some gratitude out to the others who have practiced alongside you today, held the practice together. And think about taking a sense of spaciousness and support into the rest of your day and on into the week ahead.